Have you ever heard of a law that makes no sense? Well, get ready to hear about some of the worldwide weirdest laws that still exist today. From not being allowed to use the toilet to bizarre restrictions on where to die. We got it all. So let's start in China. You won't believe this, but it's illegal there to reincarnate without permission, especially for religious leaders. Anyone who wants to come back to life must first fill out some papers and get approval from the government, because they are serious about preventing fraud and misuse of power. Although China is recognized for having strict laws, it is unclear how they will enforce this one. So if you want to be reborn in China, make sure you get their permission first. Did you know that the German Autobahn, which means the highway there, is a speed paradise with some parts allowing you to go over 100 miles per hour? But there's a catch. If you run out of gas, you might face a huge fine. And don't even think about walking to the gas station, because you will get fined for that too. So why is this such a big deal? Germans believe that running out of gas is not a situation beyond your control, because not planning ahead is a choice. And walking down the highway is risky enough, not to mention having your car stuck on or near the road. So keep an eye on your gas gauge. In South Africa, there's a law that specifically forbids wrestling bears. It's not like South Africa even has any bears, but if it did, you couldn't wrestle with them. At first, you might think that this is a pointless law. Who in their right mind would ever want to wrestle a bear? But believe it or not, people used to wrestle bears, tigers, and cheetahs as a professional sport. Nowadays, wrestling any kind of wild animal is illegal in South Africa, and it's also banned in 20 US states. Did you know that in Quitman, Georgia, it's actually illegal for your chickens to cross the road? The law is pretty simple. Just make sure your chickens don't go on a crazy adventure across the street. So if you're a chicken owner in Quitman, you better keep a close eye on your birds, or else you might get into trouble with the law. In Sweden, it is usual to avoid flushing the toilet during the nighttime hours. It may seem strange, but it's actually a polite practice, especially in older apartment buildings, where the sound of flushing can disturb other residents. Of course, not everyone in Sweden does this, and it's not like there's a toilet police watching your actions. But if you have an annoying neighbor who wants to complain, they would technically have the law on their side. In South Korea, you can turn off the shutter sound on your phone's camera. It might seem odd, but there's actually a good reason for it. The government put this law in place to stop a hidden camera crisis in subways, protect people's privacy, and prevent them from being secretly photographed. The sound serves as a warning that a photo is being taken. So if you are thinking of buying a phone in South Korea, be prepared for the shutter sound to always be on, no matter what. Same law also exists in Japan. In Scotland, it's actually illegal to ride a cow when you are drunk. This might sound like a weird law, but it's been around since the Licensing Act of 1972. The act says you can't ride horses, cows, or operate steam engines while under the alcohol influence. So, if you are planning to have a wild night out in Scotland, make sure you don't end up on a cow's back while drunk. You couldn't die at Sarpourenx unless you had already paid for your burial spot in the nearby cemetery. That French village faced a tricky situation when their cemetery ran out of space and they were unable to expand it due to legal restrictions. In response, the mayor issued a decree in 2008 that forbade deaths in the town and warned of consequence for any rule breakers. It was all just a light-hearted decree, but it got a lot of attention from the media, and the town was able to purchase more land for the cemetery 2 years later. In Florida, it's totally illegal for guys to wear strapless gowns out in public. It's part of some bigger indecent exposure law that says you can't show off certain body parts in public. But what's interesting is that there is nothing stopping men from wearing dresses with straps or long sleeves. The reason why they are so hung up on strapless gowns is a bit of a mystery. Regardless of its origins, some people think that the law is outdated and discriminatory, as it restricts clothing choices based on gender. Despite this criticism, the law remains on the books and is enforced in certain cases.